Welcome to the Take Me to Europe podcast with your host, cultural anthropologist Monique Skidmore.
I want to talk to you today about my 10 favourite villages in Cyprus for agrotourism. Guests can participate in agricultural activities in agrotourism villages and at agrotourism stays. Now, in my definition, this includes wine tasting, and you get a wonderful ability to get out into the countryside and see locals, talk to locals, make food with locals, and you get all kinds of authentic tavernas and cafes that you just don't get in the beach suburbs. So I think for such a wonderfully diverse agricultural country that's just covered in vineyards, olive groves, and cute villages, an agrotourism stay is a wonderful way to get to know something of Cyprus. So let's start in the Nicosia region. My number one pick is Kallopaniotis. This is a charming village with lush greenery in the Marathasa Valley. And I think it's got it all. It's got ancient villages, churches and monasteries. Let's start at number one with my favourite village in the Nicosia region, Kallopaniotis. This is a charming village within the lush greenery of the Marathasa Valley, and I think it has it all. It has ancient stone houses, churches, monasteries, wonderful mountain and valley scenery, and lots of agricultural experiences that you can participate in. With its traditional stone houses, its sulphur springs, the Venetian bridge crossing the Citrakis River, the UNESCO-listed church of Agios Ioannis Lampadistas, and the views of the surrounding mountains, it's not hard to see why I choose Kallopaniotis as my number one pick for an agrotourism stay. But hot on its heels is number two, Kakopetria. It's one of the most well-known, most visited mountain villages for tourists and for Cypriots. It's in the heart of the Troodos Mountains, and it's known for its charming mountain architecture, its cobblestone streets, and its multi-storey traditional stone houses, and the whole place is surrounded by orange groves. It's home to the Corner Mill, a restored water mill that's been used for hundreds of years by the locals to ground grains and produce flour. And while you're here, you can explore nearby historical sites, hiking trails, engage in a bit of wine tasting, and watch traditional arts and crafts being produced. And moving now to number three, Galata, undoubtedly one of the best choices for anyone who wants to experience a true bit of traditional Cypriot life. This is a little gem of a village. It features stone-built houses, narrow streets, and lovely, lovely countryside views. Galata has a rich agricultural heritage, and you can see this in the village's olive groves and olive production, and at the only traditional mill still operating in Cyprus. You can also visit the Folklore Art Museum, and there are exhibitions there of all the things that make up everyday country life: working tools, traditional clothing, kitchen items, and furniture. If you're in the Limassol region, my number four pick is Omedos. Surrounded by vineyards, it's a very picturesque village, and it's full of history and tradition. It's got a fairy tale-like ambience, with cobbled streets, well-preserved medieval architecture, and the Byzantine monastery of the Holy Cross. It's also well known for its fine wines, particularly the local Mavro grape variety. So you can explore their vineyards, you can take part in wine tasting, you can learn about the winemaking methods passed down through the generations, and there are lots of wonderful Cypriot delicacies to try, like Soudzoukas, Paloutse, and Koulouka. If you drive through the Troodos Mountains, you are going to turn up in Platres at some point. Platres is my number five village. It's a very popular spot for tourists and locals. There's lots of tavernas, restaurants, coffee shops. There's a chocolate shop, and it's surrounded by pine forests, hiking trails, and waterfalls. So there are lots of people who want to come here for hiking and cycling. And you can explore around Platres the vineyards, the citrus groves, the aromatic herb gardens. The farming community in Platres provides hands-on experiences like fruit and vegetable picking and learning how to make traditional Cypriot preserves. So another great agrotourism experience. is in the Troodos Mountains. It's a lovely village, narrow winding streets, traditional stone houses, and rustic tavernas. Lots of vineyards, and there's a grape harvesting that you can participate in. Also, winemaking workshops. So if you're interested in viticulture traditions, this is a great village. It's also home to beautifully restored guest houses. Moving now to the Larnaca region, we get to Lefkara. It's in the foothills of the Troodos Mountains, and what distinguishes this village from all the others in Cyprus is that it's famous for its rich cultural heritage of craftsmanship, and particularly its lace and embroidery and its delicate silverware. And in fact, the lace and embroidery tradition that's been passed on through generations is now on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. And if you're interested in this Cypriot tradition, you can learn more about it at the Lefkara Handicrafts Centre. In addition to lacework, silverware, it's got beautiful narrow stone paved streets, and they're full of souvenir shops, restaurants, cafes, and they serve authentic local dishes like tavas. Now, Tochny. Located between Larnaca and Limassol, number 8 on my list is Tochny, one of the oldest villages in Cyprus. It's a wonderful place to admire medieval alleys, old architecture, and ruins of a Latin church. It's got lots of wonderful stone guest houses. Local breakfasts are a thing of legend here, and you can also cycle and horse ride around this area. Now on to our final region, the Paphos region, and we're at number 9, Kathikos, a village that stole my heart from my first trip to Cyprus. One of the most visited agrotourism villages in Paphos. It has beautifully restored century-old buildings. It creates a magical folklore-like environment, especially in the evenings. It's a favourite destination as a base because you can explore the Troodos Mountains, the Akamas Peninsula, and the northwest coast, the Polis, Pomos, those kinds of villages that are harder to get to, but you're also always close to Paphos. So this is a lovely village surrounded by vineyards. It produces high-quality wines and delectable food in a couple of really great little taverns. It's one of my favourite villages. Everywhere, do try the wonderful winery and try the gin bar. I don't think I've ever seen so many types of gin in one place, which is just odd. Okay, number 10, Milu. Milu is not the first village that Cypriots will tell you is it a great agrotourist destination, but I think it's really peaceful, very quiet. There's only 60 residents. It's one of the greenest villages in the area. I think it really embodies the essence of agrotourism. That greenness, the village is surrounded by almond trees that just blossom beautifully in spring. It's become an important centre for bird watching in Cyprus, although you can also just relax at the spa, which is now in a restored monastery in Milu. So I hope now you've got a good sense of why you should venture off the beaches on your next trip and spend a couple of days in one of these wonderful agrotourism villages, meet the locals, participate in everyday village activities, and get a real sense of what it's like to be Cypriot.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Take Me to Europe podcast. Hop onto our website, takemetouropetours.com, and sign up to our newsletter to learn more about Europe's hidden and most exciting destinations. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast series.